allow me to start with a story that begins in 1960s when Fernando Corbado invented computer passwords. Quite a useful security feature, eh? More than 50 years later, I'm being questioned at a police station here, and the policeman is typing the details on a computer, you know, it takes him like half an hour. Suddenly, he needs to leave the room. And when he rushes off, he shows a stapler on a keyboard and he leaves. I realized that only 2 minutes later that the stapler was lying on the keyboard, on the enter key on the keyboard. So in 2 minutes, it generated like 200 blank pages. So I was thinking, like, what should I do? Can I take the stapler off the keyboard? It will take him like another 20 minutes to delete those 200 blank pages. Well, eventually, the guy comes back and without any questions, he just takes the stapler off the keyboard and continues to work and hits Ctrl-Z to delete the blank pages. And I'm like, why? What happened? Why did you put the stapler on a keyboard on purpose? And he says that, you know, the IT department introduced those new screen lock features, complicated passwords, so it's just easier for me to put a stapler on a keyboard, right? And I'm like, why? Why would people do it on purpose? But, well, this is how people adapt to security features. All right, that's up for the story. I'm Jakub, and I spent quite a time in security and in IT, 10 years. My daily job is threat modeling, sec DevOps, and penetration tests. I've worked here and there. Recently in Australia, so here is me and my mate, the gangsteroo. Now I'm back in Poland and I work at Securing. We do penetration tests and general security consulting. We work in different industries, so we've got quite a good exposure to different industries and technologies, like banks, airlines, casinos. Based on that experience, I see the trends, I see the bigger picture, and sometimes I produce research that I present at worldwide conferences. So this was about me. How about you? I've just got a quick question to you. Who is a developer here? All right. Oh, a lot of developers. Great. Security department? Well, that's a security stage. Not many of you here. And business product owners and... all right, great. Great. So we'll cover like all of the parts of the aspects of the security features. Let's get to it. Why I have an idea for such a presentation. As I mentioned, exposure to different technologies allows me to see the bigger picture and the trends in the industry. So different companies from different industries, they're implementing security features of different types. And some of these implementations are successful, some of them not. So we are going to talk about educating users via implementing security features, integrating them as an opt-in or opt-out model, driving the cost of risk management down, because that's what security is about, and basically how to marry security with UX, because, yeah, that is possible. So let's get to it. You all know the concept of user experience, right? UX. Now, I'm going to introduce a concept of security experience, or SX, I just made it up. But I'm going to show you on real-world examples what is a good security experience and what is not. So, as I mentioned, I've been living in Australia for quite a while. When I moved there, I wanted to set up a bank account. So I was quite used to the rules I can set, for example, a password in a Polish banking. Usually it's like from 18 to 16 or 20 characters. You can set letters, digits, you can use special characters. So those two passwords won't work. Those two more complicated ones, they're great. My security experience is good. I can set a complicated password, I'm satisfied with that. What is a bad security experience? Well, bad security experience is when people start asking questions on Twitter or write posts on Stack Exchange, such as, bank forces me to use 6-character alphanumeric password. And this is what happened to me in one of the Australian banks. They don't give you any other option. You just need to set up a password that is 6 characters, only uppercase and digits, and it's not case sensitive. So that's a bad security experience. You don't want these type of posts or questions. Password change policy. Question to you: how often are you made to change your password? Each month? Hands up. All right. 2 months. 3 months. Great. Never. Yeah. Well, there needs to be some trade-off, right? When I'll tell you a story. What happens if you need to change the password every month, right? People start rotating passwords. People start putting just increasing the number at the end of the password. In one of the red teams we've been doing, one of the issues was that the administrator password was March 2017. Tests happened in March. Okay, we submitted the report. Next month, we're coming to the company doing the retests, and it was next month after March. What was the admin's password? April 2017, right? So requiring to change the password every month is not the best idea, unless you're using some password managers and tokens, which will ease that up for you. All right. Now let's sign into any system. Let's say online banking. Who knows what is that type of login form? It's not a normal password login form. You just need to type some of the letters, right? Well, those of you that answered that it is a mask password, yeah, it is a mask password, are probably from Poland, because I've never seen that type of login form anywhere outside Poland and banks which cooperate in Central Europe. And this is something that is really complicated. So one of the banks came up with an idea, hey, let's not ask users for the full password, let's just ask them for random characters of the password. So let's say here first, second, third, sixth, and 12th. Because if there is a phishing, the user will not be asked for the full password, just for the part of it, so the users will be more secure. Are they? Well, there are a few challenges when it comes to mask passwords. First of all, how to not store plain text. And if you're developers, try to think about it, because it's quite a good challenge. How to store passwords securely on the server side without storing the plain text. Next one, does it protect against phishing? I don't think so, because there are live malware attacks where the malware will just ask for a different mask. So the first time when you're asked for a password, it will be asked for, say, even characters of the password. The attacker will display a message, sorry, wrong password. What do? You enter the password one more time, but the next time the mask is the odd characters of the password, so we've got the full password. So no, it doesn't really protect against phishing. Now, can you use password manager? And this is a funny story of my colleague's mother-in-law. She received this type of password manager form. It's printed from the bank employee, so that the 80-year-old lady can type in the mask password without much of a hassle. So, well, is it a good user experience? I don't think so. Does it really increase the security? Because this type of login screen was designed to increase the security level. I don't think so as well. So no, we give it a no. Next topic. Let's link a mobile app. We've got online banking. Let's link a mobile application to the online banking. Whoa. Yeah. So we've got separate channels, right? We've got web channels and a mobile channel. Here is an example from an Australian bank. In the mobile application of mobile banking, they ask for the online web password. So if somebody shoulder says and sees what you type on your mobile, they can perform an attack, just use their computer to log into your online banking using the web channel, right? While on the contrary, some, like most banks in Europe and other banks, they will require setting up a separate PIN number for the mobile application, so that if you are shoulder surfed, nothing will happen unless somebody steals your phone. BlackBerry patented quite an interesting technology of a screen lock that is shoulder surf proof, so that even if you can see what the user types on the screen, you will not know the password. Quite interesting. Okay, we need a mobile phone, so we need to get a SIM card at a telco provider. Do you have a PIN set to your SIM card? Separate? Yeah, most of you, yes, because we are in Europe. While, for example, and in Europe, it is turned on by default. Your SIM card is locked, and you've got this random PIN number that is printed on the biggest SIM card you get from the telco provider. But not in US and in Australia, because there you've got no lock. The lock is disabled by default. You can opt in. And there is a default PIN. If you want to set up a PIN, you have to think about setting this number by yourself, and the default one is 0000 or 1234. So, well, this is a good idea of implementing features by default, not by opt-in. And I had a presentation, a non-tech presentation of how to not get hacked. Back in Australia, I'm talking about this example without the differences between Europe and Australia, and people are asking me, hey, what is a SIM card PIN? Well, what is that? You need to, so you get it from the telco. No, you don't. Something is wrong, right? Okay, next, let's switch a telco provider. So you want to move your SIM card to another telco provider. And it was quite a loud story of an attack that happened to a guy who happened to be MasterChef finalist in Australia, and he was caught in an attack. The hacker swapped the phone, swapped the SIM card. He just called one telco provider, and he said, hey, I am this guy, pretending to be this guy. I want to, actually he's conveyancer, but it doesn't matter. I want to move to the new telco provider, and I want to move my previous service of the SIM card. And they said, all right, we just need your full name and date of birth. Gave it, that's it. They control, the attacker now controls the phone. He can reset the password to whatever services they want, and the guy lost $250,000. And there are a lot of attacks, a lot of similar attacks. So a hacker stole $1 million from an executive via SIM swap. T-Mobile employee stole some Instagram accounts. Somebody lost $8,000 worth of Bitcoin. Well, this was in 2017, so probably now it's worth $800. In 15 minutes via Verizon, which is a telco provider, and the SIM card was swapped. So this is a bad security experience, and it's particularly bad because you can't protect against it. You can't just set up some security features in most of the telcos, such as additional verification, additional PIN when you want to switch a provider. Any mitigations that could happen, they need to happen on the telco provider side. So. Strong authentication, such as physical ID checks when you want to move services. Notifications to both new and existing services. So you not only get a message, yes, your phone is now moved, you should get a message to your old number, to the old provider, that, hey, we're moving your service in 1 hour. You will be moved to the new provider. And one cryptocurrency exchange in US had quite a good idea, delaying when there is a key account data change. So for example, 2FA number for the phone number for two-factor authentication, or email, which can be used to reset the password. When you change this data, there is a 24-hour delay. So the changes will be introduced only when, well, you've got some time to react. If you're being hacked, you've got some time to react. Okay, other authentication methods. Fingerprints, what can go wrong? Well, I can tell you that quite a lot of things can go wrong. In one of the assessments, we've been actually creating fake fingerprints, and it worked quite well on some devices. But you don't really need those, those chemicals, mix them and make the fingerprints, because this woman used her husband's finger on a phone when he was on a plane when he was sleeping. She discovered that he's cheating on her, and the affair was so big that they needed to divert the flight. So yeah, what can go wrong with fingerprints? Voice authentication. So instead of typing your password, you say, my voice is my password, and the service should authenticate you. What can go wrong? Well, I did quite a long research on pentesting voice biometric solutions, and as of now, currently, it's not really, we're not there yet. So I would not recommend that. For example, Apple Face ID. What about that? There is, how many Apple fanboys we've got here? On the contrary, this is very good, actually. So you've got the attention features, you've got the true depth camera, the photo needs to be taken from different angles, and you cannot take, it won't work when somebody is unconscious or is sleeping. So this guy, if he used Apple instead of fingerprints, he would be much better off now. All right. So Apple Face ID, yes, it is quite good. Two-factor authentication. I've got a question. How many of you use two-factor authentication on your email account? Oh, great. I'm actually quite surprised. That's great. Good on you. Okay, what is that? That's a scratch card used in banks like 10 years ago. Some banks still use it. Is it a good method for two-factor authentication? No, not really. When you are phished, the malware can just ask, instead of, well, on top of the password, they will just ask for the code from the scratch card. So you're giving the scratch card code to the attacker. He's putting this to the online banking, and your session is compromised. So it's not really good. What about RSA tokens? How many of you use RSA tokens? All right. This is the same story. If you're being phished, you don't know where are you giving away the code. This is just an electronic version of a scratch card, which scratches itself. SMSs. Well, they've got a feature that those two don't have, so they can carry information about an action. So, for example, you're logging it, you're deleting all the files. Do you want to authorize a comment, delete all files from the system, or something like that? So it is a bit better, but you still have SIM swapping, which I described before, and you've got the GSM protocol attacks. Downgrading protocol and sniffing the SMSs. So this is also not very good. What is good is this device, UTF token. And there is a great success story when Google implemented it for all their employees, and they practically haven't been phished since there. So this is very good. And the good feature of that is that this should work if it is properly implemented. It integrates with the browser, and it should work only on the website which it has been set up to. So if you're being phished, you're not on gmail.com, the token won't work. What the future brings. WebAuthn is a great feature, and it will let you use your Android phone as a physical security key. So you don't need the hardware tokens anymore. This is great, and a good security experience. Let's talk about limits, authorization, and notifications. Transaction limits. I set up a few credit card accounts in Australia because I was collecting the frequent flyer points and flying business class for free. So I set up an account in every Australian bank, and most of them, they didn't provide any possibility to turn on card limits. So I had a card limit with like $20,000, and the only option I could change in the card was the cash limit. I couldn't change the internet transactions. So if somebody stole my card, they could just open any e-commerce website, order stuff for $20,000, and I'm done. I lose that money. Well, there is some insurance, but still. What about European banks? For example, this bank, they will allow you to set payment limits for purchases, cash limits at the ATM withdrawals, and internet limits. This is a great security experience. I feel a bit more secure with that. Another Polish bank, they will allow you to set notifications for negative balance, account credit, debit, incompleted transactions. You've got full control of your account, and the moment you pay, you've got a notification on your phone that you paid just $2,000. Is it good or not? You've got time to react. So this is great. More great examples. Revolut. Who uses Revolut? Great. It has, I don't know if you use it, but they have some security features. Some of them are enabled by default, such as, well, what you've got? We've got location-based security. So the phone will analyze your data from GPS, and if you are in Sri Lanka and you want to pay, the post-transaction is in Poland, it won't work because you can't be in two places at the same time. Swipe payments. The magnetic stripe on the back of the card carries information about the card, and there are swipe payments. You cannot disable the magnetic stripe itself, but you can disable swipe payments so that your card won't be, even if it is cloned, it can't be used in swipe payments. Contactless payments. There are some, not really realistic, but there are some relay attacks on the contactless cards. You can disable it, and then you will need to use the chip method, right? ATM withdrawals. So you can turn off ATM withdrawals while the post-transaction will still work. And you've got the online transactions, so any purchases on the internet, you can turn them off so that you will need to use the card only physically. That's great. And what you can do more, you can set virtual cards. So you can use the card just once on the dodgy website, throw it away, and use another one. That's great. What is great as well, Apple Pay ID, Apple Pay, you can enable Face ID for the Apple Pay, and you can require some additional attention details, so the camera will check if you're conscious and it's all good to pay. So this is great. Default versus opt-in. There are some features of the phones, iOS or Android. You can root them or jailbreak, and they lose some security functions, the security mechanisms that are built into the mobile OS. Once you do it, you lose some security if you're using, for example, a fintech application or bank application. Some of the applications will display a warning, and they will allow you to ignore it and continue using the application. While some of the banks will completely not allow you to use the application if the phone is jailbroken or rooted. So this is a bit better of a default security, because let's assume normal people, non-tech people, will usually just click ignore because they want to use the application. Okay, that's why actually one of my colleagues from Securing published a tool which is iOS Security Suite. If you're an iOS developer, you can use this tool. It's a library that you attach to your application, and you can detect the jailbreak and detect debuggers connected to the phone. Next one, the feature of behavioral security. I'll tell you a story. Once we were doing an incident response in one of the banks in Eastern Europe, non-English speaking country. And during analyzing the logs, we found out that the malware operator, on the compromised sessions, the first thing he did was changing the language to English. So just by filtering the sessions, which changed the language at the very first thing after logging in, we've been able to filter out all compromised or malicious sessions. And this is what some of the banks started introducing. So behavioral security, how do you move the mouse? How do you type the letters on a keyboard? Whether you change the language or access some functionalities that you don't usually access. This is great, and it's completely invisible for the user. We have been analyzing Polish banks for security features, including behavioral security features. If you want to have a look at that, there is a Golden Banker report, a security part. You can download it, have a look how Polish banks compare when it comes to security. All right, I'll display that link at the end of the presentation. Do not be paranoid. When you get paranoid, strange things can happen. Here you have, I publish a security health check. It's like a quick health check, a spreadsheet that you can send, that you can fill in by yourself. You can give it to your grandma. You set up a level of paranoia, right? You want to get hacked, or you're really paranoid about getting hacked, and you adjust your security features. So one of these checks is about using password managers and how do you answer answers to the security questions. And well, I use password managers all the time. I generate really long and random passwords and put it everywhere, even in the answers to the security questions. So once I got a call from my bank asking about the name of my first dog. And just give me a second. I open my password manager and okay, this is capital C076WB/1X. And the lady on the support line was like, oh, come on, I don't know if you're joking or not, but you got it right, but I really feel sorry for your dog. So don't get too paranoid. All right, a quick summary. There are some ideas you can use when implementing security features. Award users for setting them up. So one of the Polish banks was moving away from scratch cards, and they gave some money incentive to the users who started using SMS codes or mobile app authorization. So this is good. There are some examples from like cheaper car insurance. It's all about driving the cost of the risk management down. So and for example, you can put a black box in your car with some sensors, and the car insurance companies they will adjust your premiums. That you will just pay less, which is well a win-win situation for both of you, unless you care about your privacy. And yeah, well, you've got backend, you've got user experience. Go for security experience as well. It's really worth it. So best practices: do threat modeling all the time. Try to analyze who can attack your application and how, and based on that, you can introduce specific security features, right? And consult before implementation, because it's always good to do it. Allow using password managers when it comes to passwords. Introduce 2FA wherever possible. I've mentioned U2F for phishing. For authorization in transactions, the better option is the mobile app authorization. Okay, turn on limits, notifications, and other security features by default. Yes, because if the users don't know, if they don't have it set up, they practically don't know about this feature. They will need to dig into the menu, find this option, turn it on. Why would they even do it? If you turn it by default, and yes, sometimes the user experience will be affected because they will not pay for the new TV just by swiping their card because the limit is, say, $1,000. But yeah, secure by default. This is a good like SDLC practice. And I'll end up with a quote from Jim Manico that like every software engineer now is a security engineer because you're developing the code and you're responsible for that. Great. Here is the list of the materials, and that's all from me. Thank you very much.